What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we are talking about my top tips and tricks for summertime topwater fishing. Summertime. More importantly, topwater time. You know, I have a topwater tied on probably 9 or 10 months out of the year. You guys know that I just love throwing a topwater, no matter if I'm fishing up on the Great Lakes or down in Florida or out on the West Coast, whatever. But summertime to me is prime time topwater season. And so today's video, I have my top 5 or 6 or 7 tips to help you guys catch more fish right now on topwater. Okay, starting off, number 1, if you're a guy that likes to fish open water or spotted bass or smallmouth, you need to be throwing a topwater that has 3 sets of trebles. Okay, a lot of times this time of the year, all the way through fall, especially those spotted bass, they'll be out offshore, main lake points, out open water, chasing big balls of bait fish. Right now, they're chasing the shad, and a lot of times they'll come up and they'll knock your bait. They won't even eat your bait. They'll have their mouth closed and they'll just headbutt it, right? A lot of times they're slashing at that bait. A lot of times there's more than one fish chasing those schools of bait. So having a topwater with 3 sets of treble hooks is key. You know, you can throw your favorite traditional size topwater, a full size topwater. Make sure you're throwing a bait with 3 hooks. A lot of guys, they'll throw a bait with just 2 hooks, 2 sets of treble hooks. I like to make sure I'm throwing a bait that has 3 sets of treble. It just gives those fish that extra set of hooks to get in their face, in their mouth. So if I'm chasing those spotted bass, I'm making sure that I'm throwing a bait with 3 sets of trebles. You know, there are some treble hook or some topwater baits out there that only have 2, but I like to throw 3. Now, with that said, a lot of times this time of the year, those fish are going to be chasing and they will miss your bait. So I'm walking, whether it's a walking bait or a whopper plopper or some kind of moving bait. That gets me to tip number 2. Always have some kind of follow-up bait. A lot of times this time of the year, again, those fish are going to be schooled up and you're gonna have lots of things going on, right? You might have 2 fish blown up on your bait at once. You might actually hook 2 or 3 fish at once. It's crazy this time of the year, but a lot of times those fish miss. Unless we're talking big largemouth, big bucket mouths, right, where they just suck that bait in. A lot of times those spots and smallies will miss, smaller largemouth will miss. So if you have a blow up, always have some kind of follow-up bait. My 2 favorite follow-up baits, this guy right here, a soft plastic jerk bait, or a Senko, a 5-inch Senko in a natural shad color, or something that looks really natural like the bait they're chasing. I kind of go 2 ways, either super bright or super natural. If I'm throwing the fluke, I might go with electric shad, or I might go with like a chartreuse or bubble gum. And then on the Senko, same thing. I might go morning dawn or like a natural shad or an electric shad, something like that, depending on how the fish are reacting. If they're super aggressive, you can go with those bright colors. Those fish will see it from a long ways away. And even though they missed your topwater, you fire that Senko in there, or you fire that soft plastic jerkbait, that fluke in there, and get that thing working, they'll come up and smash that as well. So if you're a guy that loves throwing topwater, especially this time of the year, make sure you have that second rod cocked and ready to go in case you do get that blow up. You can get that follow-up bait in there and catch that fish that missed your topwater. Okay, so the Senko, the fluke. Number 3. Tip number 3. It's summertime, so we're talking grass fishing. Possibly, depends on your fishery, but we're talking frog fishing. Hopefully you guys are on a fishery that has some grass or some shallow vegetation that you can throw a topwater frog. Okay, you frog fishermen, I have 2 separate tips for you guys. Okay, number 1, you know, we like to walk a frog, you know, whether it's sparse grass or around flooded cover. We like to, just like a topwater walking bait, we like to get that frog going side to side, get that walk going, right? Well, if you're a guy that likes to walk a frog, or you're learning how to walk a frog and you're having a hard time walking it, got my legs all fouled up here, cut your frog legs offset. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Let me grab a frog real quick right here. So take your scissors. I almost always trim my frog legs, okay? I go from the, doing this backwards, kind of showing you guys, so let me turn this away. But I go where the outside leg is a little bit longer than the inside. So I'm actually going to do it like this and do it away from you guys. And I cut them at an angle, so that kind of feathers that distance of that leg. And then what I'll do, I will actually cut one a little bit shorter, okay? A little bit, you see that? A little bit off center. So what that naturally does, it makes that bait want to go side to side. So trimming your frog legs a little bit shorter on one side will really help you get to walking that frog. Now, if you're fishing mats and you're fishing cheese, real thick stuff, and you're not actually walking a frog, you don't necessarily need to do that. I will still trim my legs because I don't want them to miss the frog. I want them to get the bait. But again, that tip right there will help you guys, especially if you're a beginner frog fisherman or you're fishing a frog that doesn't have a real distinct keel on the bottom. That will help get that frog walking. Or walk, 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 pause. Walk, 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 pause, okay? Now, second tip for you guys. If you're a guy that is fishing heavier grass or mats or thicker grass, I like to do one of two things, sometimes both. I will take jig rattles, okay? The same jig rattle that you would put on your jig. You go in right through here, you slip that rattle in there, and now you have a frog that has some sound to it. Sometimes you can put some glass beads in there, or 2 rattles, right? Depending on how thick that vegetation is. But adding some kind of sound will help those fish track or key into your bait on top of that mat, okay? The other thing that I like to do, I will take a cylinder drop shot weight. If I need to, if I feel like my frog isn't making enough disturbance on the grass, on the surface, it's not making enough depression on that mat, I will take a cylinder drop shot weight and also put that into the belly of the frog. 2 things, it adds that weight to it so I can make longer casts, and it also sits deeper on the mat and makes more of a depression when you're pulling that thing over the grass. So if you're a frog fisherman out in open water and you're having trouble walking that frog, trim those legs. Again, you want that outside part of the leg a little bit longer than the inside, and then you want one side of the frog legs a little bit shorter. All right, tip number, what is this, 4? 4 or 5, I don't know. 4, top water color, okay? Made this real easy for you guys. I have 3 shower blows right here, right? I got a natural one, I got a bone one, and I got a shiny one, a chrome one. So basically, if it's high sun, high noon, I want some flash, I'm going with a bait that has some flash, right? I want that sun reflecting off of that bait. If you take a threadfin shad or I don't know, a hair, whatever type of bait fish, a silver side, whatever, it's gonna have some flash of scales, right? So especially if it's sunny, I am going with something that has some flash when that bait is going side to side. If it is calm or kind of low light conditions, I will go more like a more natural color. You know, I don't want to go super flashy if it's kind of low light conditions right now. Like right now, this is perfect. The sun is setting. I'm going to go with kind of a natural color, okay? And then if it's thunderstorms or cloudy, overcast, I'm going with bone. Bone or black, okay? I want something that's super contrasty. I can't tell you how many big fish I've caught on bone colored top waters when it is cloudy out. A lot of times in the summer, you get those late afternoon thunderstorms, and picking up a bone colored top water can be the difference between not catching them and catching some really, really nice fish. So color. With that said, let's talk sound, okay? I mentioned earlier, if you're fishing for spots or smallmouth, go with a bait that has 3 treble hooks. This is the Megabass Giant Dog X. 2 different things on this one, 2 hooks, but this is my finessey topwater. If you look behind me right now, there's not a ripple on this lake, right? It is slick calm. So if you find yourself out super early, super late, midday, and it is slick calm, a lot of times that's just too much, right? You have a topwater. I got a whole bunch of, let's see what we got. You know, you have I got a barrel of monkeys over here. You have a topwater that's super loud. Sometimes it's just too much. And over the last year and a half, 2 years or so, man, I've really fallen in love with this specific topwater, this Giant Dog X. And again, it's called the Giant Dog X, but it is really fairly small. Here's the Shower Blows 105 for reference. It is an awesome finessey topwater. So if you have a little bit of chop, a little bit of ripple, this is where, or slick calm, this is where this bait shines over some of my other favorite topwater baits. So this guy right here, I do add a feathered treble. Anytime I'm fishing a finessier topwater, you know, you look at like your favorite poppers or your slow moving topwaters, a lot of them, almost all of them, come with a feathered treble. So that is something that I add to a lot of my finessey topwaters. You can see I have a whole bunch of different feathered trebles. I just feel like if you're walking it slower, it has that a little bit more natural action with the feathers kind of flickering down there in the water. So I don't know, it's just a personal preference. But again, that's a smaller topwater. It's a finessier topwater. I go with lighter line. I'm going down to either, you know, 12, if not 10-pound monofilament leader to braided line. But that guy right there, over the last couple years, when it's gotten really tough and my topwater bite dies, switching over to this guy, that real kind of quiet, subtle walk, that thing catches them when a lot of other topwaters won't. Okay, so we talked about sound, we talked about the feathered treble. My last tip for you guys, topwater, well, let me backtrack a little bit. If you're a guy that doesn't change out treble hooks, make sure, especially on your topwater baits, a lot of times, like I said earlier, these fish are slashing at the bait. You're walking it, maybe you're walking it faster and they miss it a little bit. It's super important to change out your stock treble hook. So I mentioned that I have the feathered trebles on the rear of my finesse topwaters. Same thing with all of my topwaters. I'm changing out the hooks on all of them because I like to have either owners or gamakatsus. I like to have those really sharp, sticky hooks, okay? Now, number 6. Don't be afraid to be different or throw a different style of topwater, right? There are your guys that are just tried and true Vixen topwater guys, Shower Blows, Rovers, or Zara Spooks, right? Your traditional topwater walking baits. We're always talking about being different, different sounds, different cadences, that sort of thing. Same thing with your topwaters. Okay? I like to throw when it gets super tough, but I feel like those fish are still around or chasing bait. I will go with a topwater that maybe a lot of guys aren't throwing. so those fish haven't necessarily seen. This is the Piku Piku. This is basically a hard, wacky rig topwater. You actually tie it right there on the top, and this thing sits on the surface, and you have to hit it on slack line, and this thing just vibrates on the surface like a dying bait fish, and you will get some of the coolest eats on a non-traditional topwater. So guys, don't be afraid to, you know, throw your special or your different types of topwater. And I will, you know, it's so hard doing this video. It's so hard to, you know, talk about all the different types of topwater. Maybe next video I'll do like my top 5 topwater baits for summer bass fishing, because there's topwater is such a huge category, and I enjoy it. You know, hopefully you can see. I mean, you can see just in my box I just got back from going north with just whopper ploppers, walking baits, BFS poppers, silent baits, all sorts of stuff. So maybe I'll do that next video, but don't be afraid to throw something a little bit different. Throw something that might sound a little bit different, maybe walk a little bit different, and you guys will be surprised with how the fish react. Guys, I love throwing poppers. I love throwing walking baits, whopper ploppers, frogs, wake baits. So down below in the video description, I'll link some of my favorite baits, but those are some of my favorite tips for you guys. Some of my tips to give you guys confidence for catching fish this time of the year on topwater. Topwater is one of my favorite ways. It probably is my favorite way to catch them. Just seeing a big old bass coming out and just sharking your topwater, or just it's so much fun. So I will link some of my favorite baits down below in the video description, but those tips right there will help you guys catch more fish this summer. Guys, if you have any questions, please leave those down below in the comment section. I will try to get those as soon as possible. But as always, guys, we appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.